The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and welcome to mLevel's ongoing webinar series. Today we're going to have Jeff Steffgen talking about a new activity, Academy. Jeff is our Director of Product. A few important housekeeping items before we begin. If you have a question or issue during the presentation, you can type us a private note by using the questions feature in the questions panel, which is shown on the screen. Or you can raise your hand by using the raise hand functionality by clicking on the hand icon, and then we can open up the line to allow you to ask the question in person. And with that, I'll hand it over to Jeff to get started.
Great, thanks Jake. Welcome to an exclusive sneak peek of mLevel's new Academy activity. Let's go ahead and get started. So we have a great new activity that's going to be released this month. It's called Academy, and it's all about learning. So let's go ahead and dive into this. Academy provides a very player-centric take on learning. It utilizes new features such as adaptive questioning, open book assessment, player-based analytics, and real-time feedback. So let's take a quick peek of each of these, starting with adaptive questioning. So whether it's harnessing the power of the content grid with dynamic question templates, or entering questions manually to achieve a specific learning objective, questions are an integral part of our learning platform at mLevel. Our current system is very powerful and flexible in terms of how we can create and generate a pool of questions to be used by mLevel activities, but we wanted to go above and beyond that, so we've gone ahead and made questions even smarter with adaptive questioning. So the idea behind adaptive questioning is it provides learners with, we're providing learners with adaptive questions, and they are dynamically served up based on a player's current or past performance within this Academy activity. So let's back up for a second, and we'll introduce the concept of adaptive learning at a higher concept. It's really an approach that creates a personalized learning experience for learners, and it uses sophisticated, data-driven, and in some cases, a nonlinear approach to this instruction. Also, it's constantly adjusting to a learner's interactions, and it's based on what they've demonstrated their level of mastery over their last game plays or whenever they get in the app and start using it. And then what we do is we use this information to anticipate what types of content learners need at a specific point in time in order for them to continue to make progress. So with Academy, we're exploring what we call an assessment-driven model of adaptive learning. And in this approach, our system provides close to real-time dynamic adjustments of the instructional content that's being served up to learners. And the goal is really the creation of an individual learning path that provides deep insights into how these players can actually learn and how they will develop over time. So you can kind of get that insight based on these analytics you can get from this model. The platform becomes more adaptive and your content becomes smarter. And then finally, learners are able to easily test out of content that they already know, which allows them to spend time more efficiently learning content that they aren't as familiar with. So we can kind of skip all the stuff that they know and get right to the stuff that they don't know. So it's a better use and more efficient use of their work time. So let's go ahead and we'll dive into a few examples here just to kind of set things up on the Academy side and how it works on the back end. In Academy, the general idea is that if a player answers a certain number of questions correctly about a specific topic item, or what you might call an element of the learning concept, we can assume that the user knows this item well enough. And the system can then smartly adapt and serve up mostly questions about other items that the player may not know or has not answered yet, so we don't know if they know it or not. In this simplified example, the learning topic, or learning concept, if you will, is about shapes, and we have 6 topic items, or again, 6 elements of a learning concept, ranging from square to circle. So Academy will initially serve up a session of about 10 questions around these different shapes. So those are shown on the left here, those questions. In this example, the user must correctly answer 3 questions about a specific item for it to be considered what we deem completed, or being able to test out of it. So when you initially enter the activity, you'll be starting from 0, which is shown here on the right with the square, the pentagon, the hexagon, and the triangle, those shapes. So really, this example shows the example shows the state of mastery after one gameplay session. This one here, once the player answers 3 questions correctly about a certain item, in this case it's pentagon, then the system will assume that the player knows the shape, and we'll mark this item complete, and then we'll move on to assess players on the other shapes that they haven't answered yet or they haven't answered correctly yet. As the items are answered correctly, the higher level topic, or again what we call the learning concept associated with these items, will continually be updated to show the current progress within that specific topic. In this example, the topic is shapes. We have 39% completion shown on the right. This might actually translate to 1 out of 3 stars earned for this activity based on the threshold that you set up in the admin console. So about 33% would be 1 star in our case. I think that's what you do for default. So, and then after all of the items or shapes in this example are completed over multiple gameplay sessions, the overarching topic will also be marked as complete. And then the adaptive system will start pulling questions from any other non-completed topics or learning concepts. If this is the only topic set up in the activity, then you'd have completed 100% and earned 3 of 3 stars for the activity. And you basically would not need to play this anymore unless you wanted to as a user. So we'll explain a bit more about adaptive questioning once we get to the live demo, but wanted to just see if there's any questions at this point. If you have questions, again, use the question panel or raise your hand. If there's no questions at this point, let's go ahead and bring up our first poll question.
Our first poll question is, which number of correctly answered questions about an item should allow a learner to test out? At least 3 correct answers, at least 5 correct answers, or at least 10 correct answers?
And the idea here is we really just want to know what you guys think. What's enough, right? So is 3 enough for you to kind of understand something, or does it need to be 5? Is it all the way up to 10 or more? What do you think? Go ahead and close that out.
Looks like the majority of folks have voted for 3 correct answers.
That's great. I think that's what we're about to do for our this release of Academy. So it's right at 3. Sounds like we're right in line with what people expect, which is great. I think we have one more poll question.
And our next poll is about how much time do you think a gameplay session should last? Under a minute, 1 to 2 minutes, under 3 minutes, more than 3 minutes, or under 5 minutes?
Cool. So again, this is just how long do you think a general gameplay session should last in an activity like this? How much time do you want them spending in there? How much time do you think people will spend in there? Give a few more seconds for this to close out.
There's a bit of a mixture of results on this one.
Cool. Well, everybody definitely wants under 5 minutes, so all of these are under 5 minutes. But it looks like under 3 minutes is probably the way to go, and then seems like about half and half there. So great. I don't think this lasts more than 3 minutes per session, so I think we're pretty good on that. All right. So appreciate the poll feedback. So let's go ahead and jump into the next section that we're going to sort of preface before we show the demo. So another new feature in Academy is the in-game access to reference materials, and this allows for a kind of open book assessment, allowing the players to explore and search for answers if they aren't very confident in knowing the answer already. So in an open book test, you're typically evaluated on understanding rather than recall and memorization. So this is sort of taking advantage of our Knowledge Navigator feature and bringing it into the activity. But let's go ahead and talk about open book assessment in general, just as a starting point. So after doing some research, we found some interesting bits about open book testing. So I'd like to share some of those tidbits from a study done at Dominican University of California. So this study found that open book exams are actually better for learners when you factor in the key elements of performance, anxiety, and overall retention of the course material. And for performance, there's obviously no surprise that closed book exams had slightly lower test scores than the open book exams, but the surprising part is there was no difference in retention of the course material when they quizzed them 2 weeks later, which was I found very interesting. In terms of anxiety, we all know that lower anxiety means learners are having more fun and are more engaged. So when you can reduce the anxiety level as you're testing or assessing people, I think that's always great. And then when we look at retention, we see that open book exams encourage deeper learning. So instead of trying to memorize the information, there's more focus on the meaning and the understanding, and just leads to greater retention overall. And then finally, in the real world, with information literally at our fingertips, we have smartphones. You can just find things whenever you need. We feel that understanding and deciphering information is just far more relevant than memory skills. Obviously, there's always a point and a need for memory skills, but in terms of this open book concept, it really lends itself well to this. So again, open book assessment. In a nutshell, the Academy activity takes full advantage of this open book concept by allowing a player to look up the potential answer during the gameplay session. And it's going to be using a scaled-down version of our reference activity, again, the Knowledge Navigator that we currently have, just a light version of that. And again, we'll talk more about how we've executed this in the next demo, but first I wanted to give you some insight into why we think these features are important from a purely scientific point of view. That's sort of what we've done here. So any questions at this point?
No questions yet.
Great. Let's go ahead and roll into our second batch of poll questions.
Sure. Our next poll is there a need to use an activity like this as a pure assessment? So, for example, not providing feedback or providing a reference tool. Answer options, yes, no, or not sure.
So the idea behind this question is really, while we're touting the open book concept, maybe that's something you don't want to have in here, so we're just kind of making sure that if you don't, we can make it configurable, things like that. Let's go ahead and close this one out since it's a pretty relatively easy answer here. So it sounds like people are pretty split. So you know, we'll take a look at that, and maybe we'll make this configurable so that people can do what they will with it, or we'll make another separate activity out of this where you can just purely do the assessment without having the open book concepting. I think we have one more question during this break.
And our next question is, do you think that open book testing is effective? Yes, no, or you're not sure?
Yeah, so I'm just interested, after doing all this research, to see what people in the real world think about open book testing, see if we're hitting the mark here. It's kind of an interesting concept, and like I said, there were some surprising results from that test, from the study that I found. So. So great. Sounds like a lot of people are interested in or think that open book testing is effective. So that's great. So now that we have a little background on adaptive questioning, let me just advance my screen here, and open book assessments, let's jump into a demo so that you can see these features in action. And just give me a second while I get my notes ready, and we'll jump out of here. We'll go right into here. Okay, so we don't see it. Great. Can you guys see my screen? Looks like you can. Great. So Academy obviously is just another activity within the mLevel platform. So you can see here we've got an activity card. So when you press play, it takes you to a start screen, gives you a quick overview of what you need to do. So in here we're answering questions correctly, filling up the gauges to learn stars. I should point out that right now we're running this on, this is not the current version of Academy. It's one step behind just because we haven't pushed the latest version out. So there are a few little spelling errors, and I think there's some visual changes, a little bit more polish in the existing version that we have, but unfortunately for the demo we don't have that yet. But it's pretty close. So let's go ahead and get started here. So when you first enter the app, you come to this page around your training plan. So you'll see an empty progress gauge for each learning concept, again, what we're calling topics in our system. And as you make progress through the multiple gameplays, you'll see the gauges start to fill up as you correctly answer questions under these topics. You can also click on a gauge to get more granular detail about the progress of an individual item within that topic. So here we're seeing under Africa, we can see how well we're doing. Obviously, I haven't played this before, so not doing very well. But again, you can see across all the topics that you've set up for this activity. So as we start the game, so let's go ahead and start it, you'll see that you're presented with the first of 10 questions. So the questions being displayed on the upper left side and the answer options slid over on the right side. So that's sort of how the layout works. And then for the correct answer, if you know the correct answer, you can go ahead and select it. So let's see. Anybody know what the correct answer is for this one? I guess it's not obviously that. What city is in Argentina? Anybody? Anybody? Let's try that. No, we're not doing too good here. Homeland of the LeBron Brewery. Well, I guess it's Munich. Finally. So we got a correct answer. So so what should happen there is it should pause. I think that's a little bug right there. And what it'll do is you'll notice that you got immediate visual feedback that it's the correct answer. So the visual stuff happens, and then you'll get the some feedback text, which is customizable through the admin console. Let's see if I can get another one here. The city is known as both the City of Dreams and the City of Music.
Yeah.
What do you think, Aaron?
I think it's Vienna.
Vienna? Let's try it. Great. So, as we can see, we can keep getting correct answers, and then for, let's see, CN Towers in Toronto, let's get an incorrect answer so you can kind of see what happens here. Yeah, there's something goofy going on with our feedback here. So, so typically what will happen is when you answer incorrectly, you'll see a different visual feedback with the red styling and the incorrect X, along with a correct check mark next to the correct answer, and that'll allow the player to have a learning moment. Again, you can also add the custom feedback to the incorrect and correct answers, so you can provide a rich experience. So what I really wanted to do was kind of show off the open book concepting. So I actually know this question, the answer to this question, but if you don't, you can kind of go click this button over here on the lower left-hand side, and that'll bring up this light version of our Knowledge Navigator, which is the in-game reference tool that we're referring to. And what that'll do is it'll show you only the items that are covered in this session. So it won't show you the whole breadth of all of the items across all these topics. It'll only pare it down to what's in this session here, what's mentioned in this session, so you can kind of see. It's a little bit easier to navigate, so I can kind of go through here. I can click into each of these and see the details and learn a little bit about them. Let's see, so if we kind of go through here, we get our fun facts. I know it's not that one. If I go to Buenos Aires, fun fact, it's interesting. Chicago, so the fun fact, the city's river is only the river in the world that flows backwards. So now I've sort of explored a little bit. I found that answer. Now I can go back here, close out of the Knowledge Navigator, and now I know that I've got that answer correct. And here's sort of that feedback that I was mentioning, the way it's supposed to work. So when you get a correct answer, it'll give you that custom feedback. Yes, that's correct. So as an admin, I can type whatever I want in for that in the admin console. And then it'll also show me the progress for that topic item or that element of the learning concept. So in this case, I've answered one correctly about Chicago, and I need to do that 5 times total in this old version. In our new version, it will be 3 times total. So just a few minor differences there. All right, so let's see. In terms of the answer options, multiple choice with a single correct answer and true-false answers are both supported. Currently, you can only use manually created questions, but support for question templates in the content grid will be coming soon, hoping to get that in by the end of the quarter. Let's go ahead and finish this guy out so we can get to the end. Let's see. It is believed that the city has experienced every form of government. Aaron says it's Athens. So you can see we've got another correct answer. We also have support for images in here. English and the Ga are the most spoken languages here. Well, I know it's not this one, so let's see what happens. Again, so this is how it's supposed to work. It's basically showing that there's you've got the answer incorrect, and then we've got a different visual treatment that we're using in the newer version that'll show you what the correct answer is. It's not so prominent. We also have that custom feedback again. I've got 2 more questions to answer, and cool, there's our true-false. You can kind of see that in Chicago, so I know that's true. Here we've updated. We've got 2 out of 5 right for Chicago. And then our last question, which city is in India? So pretty sure it's New Delhi. All right, so at the end, you're presented with a summary of all the questions that you engaged with during the session, and then you get a progress report for each of those items. So you can click Next to see the higher level progress against all of your learning concepts. And you see the gauge will animate to display any additional progress from the last session. And again, you can click into the topic to get more granular analytics. So let's go ahead and click in Asia, and we can see that. So you can see how you're doing across individual items within any specific topic. We can scroll over here. We can see North America. See how I did in Europe. Great. And then finally, you can just keep your learners engaged by allowing them to easily roll into the next session if they want to keep playing. One of the enhancements that's coming here is going to be also including your stars that you've earned in the activity thus far. So any questions about the player's experience or how the backend works? Do we have any questions?
We had one question that was, is the open book component configurable? So I think the question there was, can you turn it on and off, the open book?
Sure. At this point, you cannot. But again, it's something that we're looking into as a future enhancement, or possibly having a separate activity very similar to this without that open book concept. Appreciate that feedback and the question. Any other questions?
Not right now.
Great. So we have a little bit of time, so I'll jump into the admin to show you briefly how the actual setup works. So again, we're working in an older version here. This was our beta. And you can see once you add an activity, so I believe if you go in here, we can find, I think they removed it. But anyway, you should see the Academy activity in there that you can add. Once you add it, it'll show up here as a card, just like all of our other activities. And then you've got your basic activity configuration stuff here. So you can go ahead and configure any of the summary text, any of the start screen text. I can click on that. And then you can also configure the activity branding. And this branding is just for outside of the activity itself and just in the app navigation. We're going to be working on some improvements to the branding, so maybe allowing it to theme some of the colors within in the future. And then on the question side, so if we jump over to setting up questions, you'll see our game questions here. We've got a tab for Academy. This one's sort of pre-filled out, so you can kind of see all the questions that we've added. Or I can go ahead and do, again, I've got the choice of doing multiple choice or true-false questions. So I'll continue. Basically, we can use the tagger here, so if I know I want to add something in Europe, I can go ahead and either select this if I know I want to add something about London, or I can add a new city within Europe. So if I know it's about London, I can say, oh, I don't know, London is cool, something like that. Anyway, you can add images here. So if I go and I find an image, I can add that here. Cancel that out. So you can put yes is your correct answer, and then you can put whatever custom feedback you want in here. So yes, London is indeed cool. And then you can also add all of your wrong answers. No, maybe, I think it might be. And again, you can put custom feedback for all of your wrong answers as well. So very simple and easy to do. And that's pretty much it in terms of that. After that, all you have to do is go to the publish settings. Once you've got enough questions in there, you go ahead and publish your activity. And that's pretty much it. So any questions so far on that?
No questions yet.
Great. So if you think of any questions, go ahead and start thinking about those, typing them in. Because we're going to take some questions at the end here. But let me get back to my presentation. We'll sort of wrap that up. So we saw the Academy demo. So what's next for Academy? In terms of future evolution of these features, we talked about a few enhancements that we're working to get into Academy by the end of the quarter. So those would be the addition of support for question templates in the content grid, the star notification at the session end, and the mLevel badging, and then what was the other thing we talked about? There was one other thing. Sort of lost it in my head now. But some of the other ideas that we talked about were expanding some of these features to other mLevel activities. Features like adaptive questioning, open book, in-game reference, real-time feedback. So right now we have real-time feedback in Pathfinder, another activity. That's our scenario activity. And people seem to like that a lot, so we're sort of migrating to this new paradigm of being able to add and customize feedback in all of our activities, or most of our activities anyway. So kind of interested to hear what people think, if they'd like adaptive questioning to roll over to other activities, if they'd like that open book or in-game reference tool to show up in other activities. And then finally, the expansion of the player-centric analytics, taking that up to a mission or a platform level so you can sort of get an idea how your progression is and how you're doing with your mastery as a player overall. So that's sort of a neat concept that we'll start looking into. Great. So basically, we're just currently evaluating and monitoring all the functionality, and we'll see how we can expand these into new games or any of our select existing games. But one other thing I just wanted to point out before we take questions is we don't necessarily think that these features belong in every game across the platform, especially the adaptive questioning. While it's interesting to think about it that way, I think there's a lot of use cases that you wouldn't want adaptive questioning in terms of being able to do recall and memory, those types of stuff. So what we'll do is we'll try to get these into a few more activities. We'll see how it goes. We'll see what the response is. But I think there will always be some activities that won't use adaptive questioning just for that use case.
Jeff, we do have a couple questions.
Great. Let's go ahead and address those.
So now that we've seen the demo of the activity, could you just give a quick recap of adaptive questioning, just so people kind of understand that fully?
Yeah, sure. So if I go back, let's go back into this guy here. So really what happens so if I go ahead and play again, what's happening is, so here I've got, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, we've got 6 learning topics. And as I've sort of progressed and I keep playing, and that's one other important point I wanted to stress is, this really is our first activity that you can't finish within the first pass. So the idea here is really to keep people training, keep them engaged. Obviously, it's going to depend on how much content you have in here, but in this case, we've got a lot of content. So you want to keep them learning about this content. And what sort of the wrap-up here is, as you sort of get 3 right around each of these topics. So here, for instance, New Delhi, if I answer, in this case it was 5, but in the new version it'll be 3. If I answer 3 questions that are tagged with New Delhi correctly, it can assume that I know New Delhi, and it's going to not show me those questions anymore. It's going to move on to Hong Kong or Bangkok or some other question that I haven't answered, whether it's in this topic or the next topic. So that's the really neat thing is, you know, as activities, they sort of get the same questions or get questioned about the same thing. So this is really striving to not have that happen, and assuming that you can test out of things and you can sort of just very easily learn about new things more efficiently. Aaron, did you have anything else to add to that, or pretty much covered it?
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, no? Cool.
One more question. Is there any limit to the number of topics you can put in Academy?
Currently, we don't have any limit, no. So put as many as you want. Obviously, we probably would have some best practices that you don't want too many. You can stagger these into different Academy activities within the same mission. So say if I wanted to break these out into two topics each, I could have 3 Academy activities within the same mission. If that makes sense.
And we do have an individual with their hand raised, Bob Butler. I'm going to go ahead and open up his line right now. Bob, can you hear us? Or can we hear Bob?
Testing.
There you go. Hey, Bob.
Hey, how are y'all doing?
Doing great. How you doing?
What determines the categories? Are those tags, since these are manually entered, is it the tags that determine the minimums? Like that's a good example. Africa is that tagged?
Go ahead.
Yeah. So all of the continents are topics, and then all of the cities within them are technically items, so they would be topic items. And yes, you do configure that through the tagging of the manual question.
Yeah, sure. If I can go ahead and show you in here.
And while you're moving to that, you have to have the 2-level tags. You can't simply have a 1-level tag, right? It requires 2 levels.
That's correct.
Are you thinking about changing that rather than requiring 2 levels, or not?
We've had some discussions about that. We haven't made any decisions, but if you have thoughts on that, you know, we'd love to have a little chat and kind of figure out what you're thinking you would like to see.
Okay. Is there any thought to moving not to a minimum number of questions, but % of questions correctly answered, given that you could have a universe of, let's say, 30 questions with one topic and 10 questions with another? You wouldn't want to treat them the same, and you're depicting the success in terms of % anyway. Why not go to % rather than questions answered?
Yeah, we've had some discussions with in our feedback sessions, so it's definitely something that we're looking into. There's certainly some complexity around changing to that paradigm. But we'll be happy to talk with you offline and get your thoughts on that. It'd be great if we could set up a session with you.
Okay, sure. And one final suggestion, and then I'll be quiet, is when you have the open book, rather than hunting and pecking and trying to find where that is, why not just have a search box on keywords? I think you have that anyway in Knowledge Navigator to use that unique term for, you know, that city, the example of the backward flowing river. Just key in the word river and it takes you right to the content.
Bob, that would be cheating. No, I'm just teasing.
Well, it's open book. You're already cheating.
I know. Well, the point of the open book is to have that discovery element and let them explore a little bit. And we did have some conversations about that. And so where we sort of ended up on that was, rather than give the answer away too easily, sort of let them explore a little bit. And we've sort of pared down what's in that light version of the Knowledge Navigator to only show you what's in that session. So it shouldn't be too hard to find, but we'll definitely take that feedback. And if we get more people asking for that, it's definitely something we'll look into.
Thank you.
Anything else, Bob?
One more question, and sorry for this. I'm still wondering, what is being adaptive? Is it the next time you play, you're being presented with more of the questions that you need to answer?
Yes. So the adaptive part is you can test out of this. So it will know that once you've reached 3 correct answers about Sydney, it's no longer going to show you questions about Sydney. So it'll adapt and it'll show you different questions about things that you haven't answered yet or you haven't answered correctly yet. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for chiming in.
Time for a couple polls, Jeff?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do a couple polls while people are still typing questions.
Our next poll is, does the Academy activity seem like something you would likely use in your mLevel missions? And good news for us is, looks like a lot of people are saying yes. Great. No no's, at least. A few not sure's. Great, and we have one final poll question, and then we'll take some more questions. Which new Academy feature is most exciting for your needs? Adaptive questions, in-game references, the open book feature, player-centric analytics, all of the above, or none of these?
Yeah, so really this will help us kind of decide where we should focus expanding these things. If you guys say they're all great, then obviously we'll look into those and we'll try to prioritize them. But if we're seeing a lot of people just want adaptive questions or the open book, whatever it is, then we can sort of concentrate on making that our next prioritized feature or expansion.
Go ahead and close that.
All right. Well, I'm happy to see that nobody voted for none of these. That sounds like adaptive questions, and all of them are sort of that leading the pack anyway. So I think at this point, let's see. Go ahead again. If you have a question, go ahead and type it into the questions panel, and we'll read it out loud.
We do have one question right now.
Great.
Are there any special analytics being provided for admins for this activity?
Don't believe we have any special it's just our normal analytics that we have currently. So you're still getting all the same analytics that you would get from the admin side, but nothing special, no. I don't believe so, right? Yeah. The tech guy says no, so pretty confident in that answer. So one of the other questions that was raised was, can you not have feedback? So in terms of trying to have a true assessment tool or activity, right now we can say yes, you just don't put the feedback in, but you will still get the correct and incorrect states, visual states. So you can technically not have the customized feedback, but you'll still get that immediate feedback of whether you're right or wrong. Now, if that's something that people are interested in looking into, again, we can look to expand that functionality and make it configurable, or create a separate activity that's very similar to this, that's a pure assessment. Any other questions coming in?
We do have one question. Can you add level 1 surveys to this activity?
Can you add level 1 survey?
I'm not sure. That is from Gina, and maybe we can open up the line so she can clarify that one. Gina, can you hear us? Looks like she might not have her audio available, actually. We'll try to get clarification on that.
Yeah, sure. So currently we don't have any way to put a survey in here, but obviously you can do surveys within the external link activity that we have. But if you want it sort of within this activity, we can love to chat about it with you and see what your ideas are. See if other people are interested in doing something like that. One other question that just came in was, how does longer content fit into the UI presentation? So if I jump back here, back into the actual, let's go ahead and here. So it seems like a lot of our answers are very short right now. They're one or two words. Obviously, we have a lot of room for the question itself, but we have some limited space in terms of the answer options. So what the system does, and correct me if I'm wrong, Aaron, I believe what it does is it will auto shrink to fit your text up to a certain point. So we have a minimum font size for readability, and after that it'll basically truncate that.
That's correct.
Great.
We do have another question regarding points on this activity. Does this activity calculate points like in the other games? Will the results show in the rankings? So currently this game does not support leaderboards. Again, if you're interested in that, that could be another activity that uses some of these same features, but the idea here was this was more of a personal sort of study guide, more of a flashcard thing for users to use, or players to use, to learn on their own time, and not really be a competitive thing, but that could be interesting as another activity. Cool. So I've got another question just came in. Is this available now? So this will actually be available in the upcoming 2.17 release next week, I believe. So that'll include web player and some of the, I believe, Android and possibly Windows apps. The iOS app will actually be a week or two later due to the app review process, but once that gets approved, that'll be in there as well. So it's currently available in beta mode, but next week it will be available to the general public. Cool. Any other questions coming in? Not right now. That's about it.
Great. So let's just jump over. I want to take this opportunity to plug our next webinar. So we'll see if there's any more questions that come in. But in the meantime, please save the date for next month's webinar. what we'll be doing is we'll be talking about aligning mLevel games with your content and learning objectives. So basically, we'll be giving an overview of each of the mLevel games and activities, so you can learn how to match these to certain learning content types with the right types of games. So we've had a lot of questions about that, like what game should I be using for this type of content or this type of assessment. So that'd be an interesting one. Great. Any last questions?
Nope, that's it.
All right. Thanks, everybody. We appreciate you coming in. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us or your account managers. We'd be happy to set up some time to chat with you. Appreciate you taking the time with us today.